All right, so this is the basic setup I have for my Xenagama taylori, and each morning, almost every morning, so maybe like 5 days a week or so, because of how dry it is here in Colorado, I go through and I mist all of them. I mist the enclosures pretty heavily. Sometimes I'll do this more than once, and I really try to soak. Part of why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to increase their humidity, right? Because it's so dry here in Colorado that sometimes you have to do that. And in some of these cages, there's enough bedding for burrowing. So in order to keep that bedding moist, it will lose moisture pretty fast. So I end up having to really like soak it down. But that's the only way that in some of these enclosures, the ones where they can burrow, that's the only way they're gonna be able to maintain their burrows. And so over time, because it's difficult to keep up with the moisture, they'll make burrows. Those burrows will collapse, they'll make another burrow, or they'll change burrows on their own just based on temperature. Over time, those burrows won't get maintained, so they'll collapse. And so, every 90 days or so, sometimes more, you go back through and you mix up all the bedding again, and you just give it a mix down, you wet it down, you rearrange a little bit of the stones, just try to make it a little bit more, sort of useful, have a lot of utility for them. And just adding this moisture also helps, with hydration and things like that. Some of the animals come out to drink, as you might imagine, not always, but especially during the summer, they tend to drink a lot. And the only place I try to get really into all the crevices, get underneath a lot, spray it down sufficiently so some water gets underneath some of the features, so that way there's, a longer time frame where the animals have access to new or different microclimates than it'll be after they dry out. Fairly basic stuff. The only place I don't spray is in each enclosure. I have a spot on a stone somewhere that I use as like a feeding stone, and on top of that is a tiny little pinch of Vionate, which is a like a supplement. And so I don't spray that because I don't want it to get moldy, and I don't want them to, they'll ignore it once it gets wet. So I don't spray that particular point. And then sometimes there's like food left over, like dry greens or, something of that nature. So I'll just not spray that, or, if it's greens, maybe I'll re-wet them, but they usually don't like them if you re-wet them. But if you leave them dry, sometimes these guys, and the Uromastyx especially, will snack on them. Yeah, but this is really good for them. So I think this is pretty important if you're working with Xenagama. Anyway.